Live.
Okay, welcome to the Town of Colonie Planning Board. The meeting is called to order. We hope everyone on this Zoom meeting is healthy and safe. I'll note for the record that all 7 board members are here in attendance. Next on the agenda is report from the Director of Planning and Economic Development, Sean McGuire.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us yet again for another Zoom session. No, outlook on when we'll get back to regular in-person meetings, but now that the staff is back to the office each day, we are getting back to hard copies. So I believe with the next meeting, and I'll just look for Zach's nod, we'll have hard copy packages ready for you instead of the online packages. So I hope that'll make reviews a little more efficient on your end. And I think that's about it. Zach, is there anything else that you want to make people aware of?
No. The site drawings are going to be 11 by 17 for you guys. Is that okay?
It is for me. I think a lot of people prefer that size. We'll
Okay.
see. Anybody else?
From now on.
Has state of emergency been talked about yet?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't heard anything new on the. Are you talking about the current state, the current emergency order?
Yeah, for the town of Colonie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a curfew in place, from at 9 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Right.
through June 7th. And so that started yesterday. That was extended today through the supervisor's order and posted.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I've got tonight.
Okay, on to regular business. We have one plan that's up for final plan review, 117 Karner Road, core building materials. The proposal is for the expansion of building supply yard with this phase 1, including construction of a 12,000 square foot metal frame building for additional storage warehouse space. The site is zoned industrial and it will be reviewed by our town designated engineer, CAJ companies. We will hear now from the applicant. My understanding is Chris Longo is here for the applicant and he's from Empire Engineering.
Yes, so thank you, Chairman. Again, Christopher Longo here representing the applicant and property owner, Core Building Materials. So we've been to this board a couple of times here, most recently back in October for the concept approval. Since then, we've had a little bit of back and forth, tried to flush out pretty much any and all issues that hopefully could arise through this process. It's, as we currently stand, a few things that have happened since the board last saw it in October. We have, actually, I'm sorry, I'll ask, would anyone like me to give a overview of this site and where the project is, or is everyone familiar with the concept plan that we presented for this?
Why don't you do it? Can you do it very briefly for the record?
Okay, yeah, so 117 Karner Road, in off of Route 155. It's Core Building Materials is the existing property owner. They operate their predominantly drywall business out of this location. I believe it was JR Materials prior to that. And they're looking to expand a little bit and put up a new structure.
Okay, I'm going to ask Sean if he can put up the site plan.
Yep.
Go ahead.
So the site currently has an office that's out near the road and 2 lean-to kind of just roof structures, and then a larger warehouse building in the rear. The proposal is for an additional warehouse building to the right or to the north of this of the existing facility with some new pavement, gravel, and an access driveway. So the proposed structure is 12,000 square feet, warehouse only. So no public access, no showroom or anything, no office space, and basically just material supply storage on racking interior to that structure. So the last time the board saw this, there was not a second access to the front. That has come about from the fire services review of this project in order to keep the length of the fire department run with their fire hose from the hydrant, which is kind of to the right of your screen. The hydrant's at the corner of the property. To keep that run with the hose to less than 500 feet, we needed to add the driveway. Otherwise, they would have had to get down to the other access point. So that will have a fence and Knox box, as you see. And I'm sorry, hold on a second. So yes, a access gate and a Knox box at that entrance. That will be predominantly closed. I believe that was a comment from the TDE. They would prefer that all the deliveries and access come from the main point where you can see it from the office. Other than that, changes that have been made, there was a comment and a concern about utilities to the structure. This structure used to be 15,000 square feet, but in order to avoid the need for a sprinkler system, it was reduced to 12,000, and there will be a venting system and additional egress doors to comply with building code there. But also, so that obviously removes the need for water service to the structure. There also was discussion about the building code requiring any new structure to have a toilet room. And there is a provision in the code for a variance, which we have begun the process for, and that would remove the need for any toilet room in this structure. And because there is access to a toilet room within 500 lineal feet, which is back at the office building. So that's pretty much the rundown. There is a rendering also. I think if Sean has that available to pull up. I know that there were some comments at the concept meeting of trying to dress up the building a little bit. So the attempts there were the two-tone color scheme, and also a contrasting color there for the trim, along with some pilaster contrasts as well. And there will be a berm with plantings along the frontage too. So I think we had some of that discussion last time in October as well. With the berm will get you up almost to kind of the height of that. If you see the darker gray color is up to the top of the door, so about 7+ feet. That berm is about that same height, so it'll kind of cover up to there, and then there's trees and a fence on top of that as well.
Okay, is that it for your initial comments?
Yep. So any questions? Certainly I can answer.
Well, I think we'll get comment from our town designated engineer, and that would be CHA, Joe Grasso. Joe, do you want to run through your comments?
Yeah, so I'm gonna flip this back to Chris for a minute. Chris, just because the type of use that we're looking at, it's a storage retail facility. Obviously, what we're looking at here is a storage building. But I want Chris just to speak to the board and for the record about any outdoor storage that you would expect, because there's nothing shown on the plans for equipment lay down areas or equipment storage outside of the building. So can you just clarify if everything's going to be enclosed or if there's going to be anything stored on the site?
So right now, you can see the two smaller buildings in the front. They don't actually have walls. So the intent here is to get a building with walls so that this product can be stored interior to the structure. As far as over on this area where it's proposed, there really isn't any room for other exterior storage. It's pretty much set up just for drive lanes. So at this point, I don't know of any other storage exterior to that building. I know they do have some stuff stored kind of outside here on the behind the office in the kind of southwest of the property, but nothing proposed for any specific outdoor storage. No.
Okay, because there's a lot of clearing that took place to the northeast of the proposed building in the gravel area, and that there's some areas there that are proposed for stormwater management. I think you've got a grass filter strip there, but there's no storage that's going to take place. Because I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that we do have a residential neighbor both to the northeast, the Heino property, as well as there's some residential properties across Karner Road, and that was a concern that we had raised during, sketch plan and concept plan review. And I think the site plan has been designed to try to mitigate those impacts. And I just want to make sure that, those residences are still taken into consideration when the board reviews this. So just going through our comments, we don't have much. We've gone through this project review a couple of times. We are in favor of the variance that the applicant is seeking from the New York State Building Code. We do feel like there's appropriate accommodations for public restroom on the site, and we always knew it was the applicant's intent to not have to put those in the building, so that could really be used for storage, which we think is in keeping with the applicant's intent and less intense use of the site. We are aware of emergency services wanting the second curb cut, primarily for increased access to a hydrant down in that end. I would like to see a note on the plans clarifying that is a emergency access only entrance with signage and, to make sure that gate is always closed, primarily because we're not trying to encourage more traffic to that end of the site, again, because there's residential neighbors across the street. So to lessen those impacts, we had always thought that there should be, buffering along Karner Road, which Chris has done a good job incorporated into the plans. He talked about the berm. He talked about, additional landscaping, which you can see on the plan here. Obviously, the emergency access curb cuts into that. So there's an area of some more open visibility, which we're okay with. In terms of the landscaping, Chris, if you could, when we talk about evergreen trees, you've got a combination of spruces and pines. We like to see those noted in terms of minimum heights at the time of planting, as opposed to minimum caliper. I think you've got 1.5 inch minimum caliper trees, but we would like to see a minimum height of, say, 7 to 8 feet on each of those trees. And then, it's a pretty straightforward site plan. We had some minor comments on the stormwater pollution prevention plan. It is subject to a SWIP, which we've reviewed, and those are easy comments for Chris to address. So, our last comment review letter dated March 10th, which is in your packet, is pretty short with just a couple of minor items. And then we did include for the board's consideration a short environmental assessment form, part one of which was prepared by the applicant and describes the environmental setting of the project and the proposed project impacts, and we feel it is accurate in its assessment. And then part two, which is the review of the impacts and determination of significance, which we have drafted for the board's consideration. And we do not feel like the proposed project will result in a significant impact on the environment. And therefore, if the board's comfortable with the application and looking to move forward tonight, then the board could consider issuance of a negative declaration pursuant to seeker. So that's where we are with our review of the project, Pete.
Okay, are there any members of the public looking to talk, Sean?
No, there's nobody registered and nobody has checked in since.
Okay, we'll just go down the line. Steve Hyder, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I'm good with it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Craig Shamlian?
Likewise.
Susan,
I'm fine.
Lou,
I'm good.
Chip?
Yeah, I'm not sure which trees are gonna be taken out in front. Because looks like there's 4 that are gonna remain. And I noticed there's some dead wood on some of them, and maybe that ought to be trimmed up since you're gonna be logging the rest of the property anyway.
Could you mention again where the ones to remain are? Because I do believe if you're talking about the front middle,
Yeah.
we have since added landscaping to that and added new tree, a new hedgerow, rather than keeping those few to remain in the center.
Okay. All right. The very tall ones there, they're about 50 feet tall.
And that's at the center of the site, right in front of
Well,
the
it's,
proposed building.
no, actually, it's just past the chain link fence.
It may be showing.
Chain link fence is on the south side of the property.
Bear with me 1 second. So we've added trees to the south of the second entrance road, if that's what the spot you're talking about, the secondary access point. We have added a new hedgerow, and all the existing trees will be removed from that location.
Okay, all right.
Yes. Yeah, so we have extended that. A prior iteration in the plan had those trees to remain, but to your comment, we've kind of thought that same thing. Let's actually get rid of all those trees and just establish a new healthy hedgerow.
Okay, that's fine.
Anything else, Chip?
That's it.
Paul Rosano?
Yeah, just a couple of things, Peter. Could you pull the site plan up again, Sean? Because I wasn't on the board back in October. What is the location of the dumpster on this property?
I believe it's in the back corner behind the office building, and there wouldn't be a new dumpster proposed for this building.
Okay. Now, as far as the plantings are concerned, you used the magic word of pine tree. Can you be more specific? Because this area has an issue with white pines. They don't last. There's an issue with some invasive species. So could you be a little more specific on, do you have a cultivar on those pines right at this moment, or is that flexible?
It's flexible. We were suggesting a mixture. I think it was a comment maybe back last year as well, to not have one species. So we have a mixture of the red spruce, the white pine, and the blue spruce. So as you see the different block styles there. So though that would be the red spruce in front, and then the black is the blue spruce in every other with the white pine in that second row.
Okay. I have the chair of the CAC sitting next to me. Happens to be my wife. We're not going to be in favor of the white pines at any. The CAC is not going to be in favor of the white pines under any condition. I would suggest that you go back to maybe look at a white fir, something along those lines, or maybe hemlock trees. But the white pines, definitely for this area, we both belong to Prism. It's not a good idea. They're dying by we're in a different growing zone at this point in time, and they're just not going to last. And you don't want to be going through 5 or 10 years from now having to cut them down. So
Paul, this is Joe. I would recommend we switch to a white fir then. They don't self prune, so we'll keep the, branches down the bottom, and they're still a native tree.
Yes.
So.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Joe.
And that's not a problem. We'll switch to the white fir instead of pine, but no issues with the spruces though, right?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
Anything else, Paul?
No, hold on. I got to check. No.
I just want,
I'm in attendance.
I don't have,
You just got to make sure that Ellen's in attendance for the CAC. Nancy?
Okay, got it. So noted for the record. Ellen Rosano's here for CAC. I just have one question, nothing major. What do you, I saw there is a phase 2 somewhat contemplated. What would that be in general terms? Where the existing building, where the sheds are, or?
There, I guess through the length of this process that has kind of evolved like everything else. At this point, everything is going to be internal to the south of this building, certainly. So as Joe Grasso certainly helped this along and made sure of, and he made some good points as we went through to make sure that all of these conditions that we're asking for your approval will hold true and don't depend on what happens in the future. So we have a 35% green space and that will remain. The contemplations right now are either whether or not to salvage that office building and maybe just build internal to those two kind of lean-to structures, if you will, or to build a larger structure kind of in the footprint of the lean-tos and a little bit bigger, and then remove the office. So that's kind of the two contemplations, whether or not the office is salvageable.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board members? Joe Grasso, can you briefly walk us through the seeker, the environmental review?
Yeah, so like I had mentioned, it's an unlisted action pursuant to seeker. So the applicant had provided a short environmental assessment form with part 1 filled out. We did draft part 2, which is the impact assessment. And out of all of the 11 questions regarding impacts and thresholds, the appropriate answer is that there would either be no impact or a small impact would occur. So there was no triggers that would require additional investigation or a more exhaustive environmental review. So part 3 of the EAF has also been drafted, which includes the actual determination of significance. The planning board is the only involved agency with site plan approval being required. So the planning board, it says check this box if you have determined based on the information and analysis above and any supporting documentation that the proposed action will not result in any significant adverse environmental impacts. And we did prepare a draft resolution, which I will just summarize. It's a resolution of the Town of Colonie Planning Board for the preparation of a negative declaration, whereas the applicant has submitted a site plan application to the Town of Colonie Planning Board. It's an unlisted action pursuant to seeker. The planning board has reviewed part 1 of the short AAF and has had to complete parts 2 of the EAF in conjunction with a review of a significant number of documents as part of the project application. Be it resolved that based on the review by the planning board that there will be no significant adverse environmental impacts and that an environmental impact statement will not be required. And be it resolved that the attached negative declaration be adopted in accordance with seeker. So that is a draft resolution for consideration by the planning board that you would want to act on before you consider the final site plan approval.
Okay, I'll ask the stenographer to put that entire resolution into the record. Do we have a motion on that resolution?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Chip, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. I'll say for the record, there are no negative votes. The ayes have it. On to the main question before the board, which is for final site plan approval, subject to the conditions set forth on the record by the board, by the town departments, and by the town designated engineer. Do we have a motion?
Make a
Make that
motion.
motion.
Chief, do we have a second? Lou, second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I don't hear any negative votes. So it appears that that resolution has passed unanimously. Is there any other business before this board?
one second.
Yes, sir.
Can I speak, Pete? This is Ellen.
Sure.
I just wanted to thank Chip Ashworth and Susan Milstein because they volunteered to help us with Conservation Day last Friday.
Okay.
Saturday morning, and it was greatly appreciated. We had a good time, and we'll be doing the same thing next year. Hopefully, not under these circumstances, but
Right.
it was greatly appreciated, and I wanted to thank you both.
Well, the planning board appreciates it too, I'm sure. So thank you. Any other business before this board? Yes, Sean.
Just so the board knows where we're headed with meetings as we move forward. I think we anticipate by June 16th will be our last weekly meeting, and we'll go back to we'll go back to the regular schedule at that point.
Okay.
But we're still meeting remotely until large gatherings are allowed. And I assume that among the board will maintain a 6 p.m. start time for these,
I like 6 p.m. for the
remote.
That's good.
I don't know about,
I like it.
is that what you're asking, Sean?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that as long as we're meeting remote, we'll stay to 6 p.m. But once we go back to our in-person, we'll go back to our regular schedule as well.
So we're going to have a meeting next week?
We have a meeting we have an agenda built for next week and the 16th, and that'll be the last time we meet every week. We'll go back to the previously adopted schedule, just with the adjustment to a 6 p.m. start time for the remote meeting.
Okay. Anybody have any comment on that?
The paperwork will be available at Public Ops for the next meeting.
Yep. So now that the staff is back full time every day, we're bringing in hard copies once again. And so starting with the meeting for next week, the hard copies will be available for the board members, and we'll continue to post the copies online for the public.
Thank you.
Is there
You know what I would like to say, as long as we're going Zoom, I don't need hard copies. I've been doing well with these.
Okay. If
Does
anybody,
everyone, can we take a poll on that?
I like the hard copy.
Agree.
Okay.
I'm
Hard
fine
copy.
with electronic.
Okay, who wants electronic? Maybe that'll be easier. I'll take electronic.
I
Craig
do.
will take electronic. Anybody else?
Big.
Susan will take electronic.
Susan, Pete, and Chip.
Electronic.
And Craig.
is fine for me, Sean. Electronic is fine for me, Sean.
And Kathleen. And so hard copies will go to Paul, Lou, and Chip.
And Chief Hyder, where's Chief Hyder?
I prefer a hard copy.
Okay.
Is there an issue of once we start meeting back at the town hall again, of keeping the meetings at 6 o'clock, or is that set? We have to do it 7. How does anybody else feel about that?
I'd love it to be 6, but
I think it depends on when we go back there.
Why so, Craig?
Yeah.
I mean, through the summer, quite frankly, my personal preference in the summertime, I'd rather do 7. It gives you, I mean, the 6 to 7 time is more personally, selfishly more playful than later at night.
we don't want to interfere with that.
But
Only one night in 2 weeks. We won't
it's not
resolve
a big deal.
that discussion.
Yeah,
Let's
there might be an issue with the public getting there, because if somebody, depending on schedules, and I don't know the history on it, why we're at 7, but it's been typically my experience. But we can look into it and get and research that for everybody.
Sean, one part on this, the staff that works at town hall at night is only really there till 9 o'clock. So if we go back to 7 and we have an all-nighter, there could be a problem, because you and I and anybody else cannot lock up the building. So you might want to check with Paula and her group and see if there's an issue with, if we have one of those late ones. So 6 might be better than 7. I'm not really sure, but I think we should cover that with her.
Okay, I'll check. I'll certainly check in on that.
I'm pretty sure that John is only there till 9 o'clock. And I don't know if 2 hours going forward is going to be enough time.
But I assume it's going to be a while before we're back meeting in person, right? I mean,
we don't have keys to that building. So, I mean, and, I would definitely check with Paula and her, and make sure that.
Greg, the town board is back there tomorrow. No, Thursday.
Yeah, but John's only scheduled 9 o'clock at night. So,
No, I'm saying, but the town board is going to be in the building on Thursday for their meeting.
yes. But their meetings, I can tell you by history, usually last about 12 minutes. So, I mean, it's not like us. So they don't give very much. So it's just to throw that out there since we're talking about time.
We'll investigate and give some feedback back to the board,
Thank you.
understanding your desires.
I mean, I think 6 is too early going forward. Maybe 6:30, but not 7, but I think 6 is too early. But that's my opinion.
Okay, we'll keep talking. Okay, anything else? Have a good night. Thank you. It was good to see everybody, and stay safe and happy and healthy.
You also.
Be safe, all.
You too, Pete.
Thank you.